the recording. So Jacal Hyder, I know I've met most of you, if not just meeting some of you today. I chair the Emerging Professionals Committee for EDAM, and alongside me are some of our committee members, Katie, Jen, and Lauren Cooper here today. We kind of put this together. This is a new series, so we're just trying to create a quarterly chance for anyone new to the field. It's not just for young professionals. It's, you know, Justine and Andy have a great example of just coming into the field from a completely different background. I'm on the real estate side now. I was in economic development, but if you're on the flip side, you come into this field and you're just like, how do I meet people? How do I get my hands around this network and ask some of the, you know, what we would all say are the dumb questions, but they're not dumb questions, but sometimes they're not questions you want to bring up in a large coffee networking group with some seasoned vets or during an EDAMU webinar. So this is kind of what that's for, is kind of career building specifically around economic development, and also just connecting with peers and meeting more people and kind of that environment that's over the lunch hour, usually when we have that chance to kind of regroup and just focus on ourselves, focus on our career, focus on building those soft skills that will help us in our day-to-day. So that's kind of the purpose of this. And then specifically in this first Building Your Toolbox series, this first event, we've got Peter Lavelle here to speak about just LinkedIn, resume building, you know, what do and do you not put on your LinkedIn. As some of you are probably planning on attending this summer or the fall conference, coming up here in a few weeks. If you're not, it's still great information, but we're trying to kind of piggyback both so you can be prepped going into that conference and feel confident. So thanks for joining all of us. It's fun to see so many new faces. So I'll turn it over to Lauren and Peter. Lauren from our committee had helped organize our speaker here today. So if either one of you want to get an introduction and get us started, we can jump right in. And then at the kind of middle and end, we'll have opportunities for kind of introductions if you want to ask questions and connect with the rest of the group.
I'll throw it open to Lauren if she wants to say something. She's muted at the moment, but I didn't want to give her a chance if she wants to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to hear what Pete has to say about some of the LinkedIn tips and tricks for today. And just a friendly reminder, please go ahead and mute yourself if you are not speaking. Other than that, Pete, if you're ready, go forward.
Oh, I'm ready. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and get rolling here. We're talking about LinkedIn today primarily, and I like what was said about what to put, what not to put. So those are equally important. Let me get going here. So who am I? I'm Pete Lavelle. I'm an MBA from Bethel. The letters after that are certified professional resume writer, certified employment interview professional, and certified graphic resume artist. So I'm one of the few that put a lot of graphics, infuse a lot of graphics that are appropriate into my resumes. I'm an Air Force veteran of 23 years with combined active duty and reserve. The experiences that have taken me as far away as Guam, Germany, Iraq, and even Somalia. As a parallel, when I was doing reserves, I had a parallel career. I was had corporate experience, manufacturing environment, insurance, banking, medical device, marketing, retail. Should I keep going? And I launched ResBuilder in 2011. So I've been at it for quite a while, and there's the logo you should be looking for when you're out on the web searching for stuff like that. So why LinkedIn? The good reason, especially for people that have been in their profession as long as some of you have, it's a great source for news and information specifically geared to what it is you're doing. Okay. It's a great way to engage in that industry as well. So not only are you reading about it, but you can actually participate in the conversation. For networking, this is also a great venue without having to leave your chair to expand your professional network and get actual physical, human, though virtual contact, because you can actually, email and trade ideas, talk to people on a one-to-one basis. It's a great venue for that. With over 562 million users and growing, There's no doubt about that. And also, if you're getting near the top of your game, and when that day comes, and you're doing some innovative things in your career and in your industry, you can rise to what's called thought leadership and participate out on LinkedIn in a way that puts you out front, because you're the one introducing new ideas and new concepts based on the experience. There are also LinkedIn groups that are specifically geared to your interests and to your industry. And for employment, for people on the younger side, it's a great way when you wrap all that networking, all that information that you can learn just from LinkedIn. It's a great avenue to employment, because 85% of all recruiters are using LinkedIn to find qualified candidates. Making sense? So now we're going to break down the what it is, the elements on your page. I have a lot of slides, so I'm going to go kind of fast. I want to make sure we get it all in, and then also leave time for any questions or concerns. So we start with the photo. That's the first thing that's going to meet a person's eye. So there's actually some criteria that you want to do in this particular forum that are a good idea to follow. What you don't want to do is treat it like a Facebook page and put photos that aren't that professional. So I got two good examples here that follow a lot of the criteria. So one of the pieces of information, or the pieces of criteria rather, that LinkedIn professionals put forth is that you want to choose a photo that captures the level of professionalism for the audience in your industry. Let me show you how that makes sense. So you look at the photo on the left, the black and white one. That's a great image. I mean, she stepped outside the convention just a little bit by doing it black and white. And you can barely see in the background, there's a slightly different background, not what you'd find in a portrait studio or anything like that. So that's a great way to do it. The photo on the right is a little more conventional, doesn't follow all of the conventions that LinkedIn professionals recommend, but it's still a good photo because it's really geared towards the audience in his industry. If you think of the one on the left, the black and white one, as somebody in the creative field, that's a great image. If you think of the one on the right as a doctor or a engineer or something, somebody who does things in the background, maybe not always a frontline client-facing person, that is a great image. Generally, your face should take up 60%, and I realize the one on the right his face doesn't take up 60%. But again, that's a great image. It's professionally rendered, and it really comes across nicely to communicate visually who he is. And choosing the right expression. Again, I want to go back to that. The woman on the left is going to have more client interaction, so she's more public facing. It's great to have that smile. The person, on the left, the person on the right, this person, I know him, he's more of a background person. So it makes sense for the people that he's trying to appeal to or reach, speak into through his profile. That's the kind of expression that's appropriate for what he does. If he was sort of somebody that was like a car salesman, let's say, that's probably not the best expression. But for a scientist or a doctor, that's a pretty good expression. Genuinely happy faces warm visitors up to a person's page immediately. So I like that. I wanted to repeat that. Pick a background with a healthy contrast that's not distracting. Again, that's what happened in both of these images. That the background here for the one on the left, there's not a whole lot of background to be revealed, and it doesn't distract what you do see. The one on the right is a good example of a good background because it provides a very healthy contrast between what he's wearing and the tone of his skin and the rest and the image as a whole. All right. Creating a custom background image. See, what I'm getting into is ways to take your LinkedIn profile just to the next level. I don't want to get into the weeds too much here and try to give you so much information that you end up being confused. But there are a few simple things that you can do to make your profile stand out from your contemporaries. And one of them is creating a different background image, similar to how you do on Facebook. Right now, LinkedIn provides a pretty standard background. I would call it very boring. So if you were to just simply change the image in the background, which is easy to do, to something like that, now nothing else has changed other than the background, it creates a heck of a lot more impact. And if you have any, if you want any resources, just let me know. I'll shoot my email at the end, And I can send you some resources for how to source these images, what the specs are, and things like that. Be happy to do that for you. Another thing you can customize is your LinkedIn URL. This is a typical LinkedIn URL. And what you can do is jump into your profile. And I'm going to show you that here. Give me 1 second. Grab a page and drag it in here. I'm going to show you how to do that. So when you first go on to LinkedIn, you're going to arrive on your feed page. You want to go to your profile. And up here is edit public profile and URL. You click on that. And now you have the opportunity, when you click on the pencil, to edit that character string, those numbers and things that don't make sense, and ampersands and all those things, and just put your name in any fashion you'd like to have it put. So I'm going to put a dot between my first and last name and save that. And that's going to alter my URL a little bit. Oops, somebody's already got it. So I'm just going to leave it alone. So now I've got a URL that speaks just my name. And it makes me look a little bit that much more savvy out on the profile when you can do that. And it creates a more memorable experience for the user, especially when you're communicating and providing that that information outside of LinkedIn, i.e. email or some of your contact information. You might have it on a business card. Your headline. The next section is you're going to come to as you scroll down the page is your headline. The headline is probably the most important single element on your profile. You're allowed up to 220 characters, which is a big growth offered by LinkedIn. It used to be 120 characters, including spaces. And it's a hook that you use for people to find you in a LinkedIn search. Now, it's specifically written to be about what you do as opposed to who you are. If you don't insert a headline, LinkedIn will just use your most current job as your headline. I'm going to show you what I mean. So we have scientist. Okay. So you'd see your name, your picture, and then it would say scientist. Does that reflect who you are or what you do? More who you are. So here's what he does. So after I finished with breaking my client down into what it is he does, we came up with a headline like that. A lot of keywords in there. It's very keyword rich. And it helps a person find them in a search because that's at the top of your page. It's one of the most searched pieces of real estate on the page. So now we're going to continue to scroll down. And we come to the summary, which is the about section. It used to be called your professional summary, but now they call it about because it's about you. It's written to get you noticed by hiring managers while highlighting some of your best work. But it also tells people in your profession what it is you've done. Think of it as a very extended post that you're writing because the tone of voice you want to use here and everything that you write on LinkedIn is key. It's more of a story format. And it helps, it provides a preview for the reader that helps them really understand your professional nature, okay? It's also, overall, it's a well-written summary that strengthens your profile, adds some personality, and reinforces search optimization. So again, I want to emphasize search optimization isn't always about people who are looking for connections to get jobs. It's about people who are looking to connect with each other in the industry. The next section is, I'm still calling it new because people just don't know about it, especially people who are not frequent users of LinkedIn. It's called the featured section. It's a place to showcase recent accomplishments. It helps keep your page fresh with new content. Let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to drag this page back. So, be back to my profile. Okay. So here's my profile. And as I scroll down, you can see my headline. And the dashboard isn't something that somebody's going to see when they're on your profile. So when the person comes to your profile, they're going to see this about section. Okay, that's the summary that I was just talking about. You get up to 2,600 characters for that. But here's the featured section that I was talking about. You can put in new stuff here all the time. It keeps your page fresh. It gives visitors a reason to keep coming back. And as you can see, one of my most recent accomplishments was getting the Certified Graphic Resume Architect certification. There's an industry award there. And then here's an example of a resume that I did for a client, just to show you what I can do for somebody that's in say like finance, which we might typify as boring. So I put that out there just to show that a resume doesn't have to be boring. Now I can delete and add as I see fit. The only caveat to that is I would discourage you from putting anything in there that has a link. Because if you give them a link, you give them a reason to leave your page, and you just don't want to do that. Okay, so that makes sense? Good. So the next section that you would come to would be the experience section. This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of explaining what it is you do and how you do it. Again, tone of voice is critical. The tone of voice on LinkedIn, as with anything out on the internet, is very different from what you'd read in a textbook or a news article or things like that. It's very conversational. So you want to build story. And that's the way people remember anyhow, is through stories. So the more relaxed you can make your descriptions be, the more people will be into it. So I usually start with a summary, an overarching summary of what that role is, what it means, what you've done, in a very brief summary, 2 or 3 sentences. And then you can go ahead, and that's all you really need to do. So it doesn't have to be that hard. Then you drop in a few bullets from your resume that are some of your best ofs in that particular position, and you're done. Because they only allow 2,000 characters, and that's that includes spaces. So it turns out to be about, if you were writing it on a Word document, you'd probably get between 500 and 700 words, and then you're done. Again, 2,000 character limit, including spaces, just to keep that in mind. The next section you're going to come to after your experience section is education, licenses and certifications, and volunteer experiences. All of them kind of follow the same format. You really can't fudge too much here. It's pretty straightforward. You're just entering factual information, degrees, licenses, certifications. The volunteer experience is a little bit different. If you have some community service and volunteer organizations that you've been involved with, it's a good place to list them, and that helps differentiate you as well. So this is what a typical dialog box looks like for any and all of these. Just add licenses and certifications to add education or add volunteer experience. So the dialog boxes look the same. So all you're doing is adding information in the drop downs that you see here. Skills and endorsements. Next, as you scroll down, you'll have the opportunity to have to enter your skills. Okay, most people will drop in a few, and then they'll move on. You get up to 50 skills to do that and that's really important because it acts as a keyword repository. It also gives your connections a reason to endorse you for those skills. So if you look at it, somebody who's really working their profile well, and you come down to their skills section and they have a particular skill listed there, and then there'll be a number in parentheses after it. That number represents how many people think that they're good at that skill. So if you are good at a particular skill, you want to get people to endorse that for you. And it's really easy. It's a social media type of thing where when they're visiting your profile, they have an opportunity to do that. That'll flash up in the banner, say, is so-and-so good at this skill? Or how would you rate so-and-so at this particular skill? So it's great to do that. Ask your friends to do that, your connections to do that for you. All it takes is a couple of clicks. Remember, you get up to 50. Most people don't do that. Okay. The next section that you scroll down to is going to be recommendations. This is where a lot of people just bypass that because we're not self-promoting as human beings. We don't typically want people or it's very difficult to ask people to speak well of you, to highlight your stuff, brag about you. But those recommendations really help build your credibility. They give people another avenue, a window into your professionalism, your character, what it is you've done. Zero in and focus on something very specific for a moment in that recommendations. They help reinforce your brand. Okay. The reality is that recommendations rarely occur spontaneously. It's something you have to ask for, and then something you also have to offer. Because while it's good to receive, it's better to give, as we all know. And recruiters and other people who are interested in you also look at the recommendations that you've given equally as they would the ones that you receive. So it's important to do that. Also, the whole give receive concept will help you when you reach out to your connections to say, hey, if you give me a recommendation, I'll be happy to give one for you. And you could even do like I did and write my own recommendation and let them edit it and send it back as their own. I'm a writer, so that comes naturally for me. How do you get that ball rolling? Is if you're out on one of your connections profiles, you have this more button underneath their headline and information. You just click on the more button and then you scroll down and you'll see a request, a recommendation. Boom, a card pops up with a little boilerplate language. You add your personal note to it. Be sure to say that you'll be happy to do one for them, and off you go. So building a recommendation cache is a lot like product recommendations out on LinkedIn. I mean, Amazon. You know, if you don't know a whole lot about the product and you want to know about a person's experience with that product, you're going to scroll down to see who gave it a 5-star rating. So while there's no star rating, of course, with these on LinkedIn, they are generally going to be upbeat and positive and help give you a boost, an edge. After recommendations comes accomplishments. That's another section that a lot of people, it won't even appear in your profile unless you've added it. But it's really good to do that. Again, it helps set you apart. It helps keep your things in order that you've done in life. For example, the things that you've done concurrently with employment, there's 8 categories here. And if you've done something that fits into one of them, you can add that as an accomplishment. A lot of times, I worked at 3M. We've had a lot of engineers, doctors who've made publications. So we add that. There are patents. If you've taken any special courses, you can add that. Any projects, honors and awards, test scores, languages, and professional organizations, such as EDAM, for example. Make sure that's on your profile, that's as an accomplishment. That's something that you're associated with. The next section is going to be connections that I'm talking about. Now, connections is not a section, but it's a networking. This is where it really becomes a benefit to be a player out on LinkedIn, and that is connecting with people. Because you can, just like you can on Facebook, if you do it right, you reach an audience on an exponential level. Because not only are people in your network seeing it, but people in their network are seeing it. So that has the potential to really get you out there. If people who are connected to your connections, but not connected to you today, might be connected to you tomorrow, and your network will grow by making good posts and things like that. You want to strive for a 500 plus connection threshold, because that puts you in a different category, especially among the recruiting strata, that they will zero in on people with 500 or more connections, because when they tap your network, they're tapping a huge network as well in one single stroke. Be selective, however. Out on Facebook and other places, people will friend anyone and everyone. But here you want to be a little more selective, because it is a professional network and it's a little bit closed. You don't, and let's face it, there's people out there who have ulterior motives for trying to connect with you that aren't necessarily good. So you want to know them on some level. That is to say, if you don't know them directly, but somebody in your network does, that's a pretty safe bet. So here's some strategies and advice on how to and what to connect with. So why don't you accept connection requests from trusted origins? Again, that goes back to people that you know, not maybe personally, but you know their name in that industry. You know them through a connection. People will also come in and search your profile. So number 2 there, through LinkedIn searches, you can look for certain people, but also people who are checking out your profile. Be a little bit careful there, because some people are checking your profile just to get you interested in connecting with them. And then they're not necessarily a legitimate connection. Go through your email account address book, people in there. LinkedIn will actually do that for you if you want them to. I generally don't, because I don't want them to inviting anybody and everybody, but that's another source. Connecting with alumni. We haven't talked about LinkedIn groups yet. We will shortly, but group members are generally trustworthy sources. And then when you post, make a post out there on the feed, and you get reactions from it, people are engaging with it. The people that have liked your post, you might want to consider connecting with them as well. On the next level of networking are the LinkedIn groups, of course. LinkedIn groups are your path to thought leadership, like I mentioned earlier. LinkedIn groups act like hubs of information because some of the latest emerging trends are being brought forth by members in that particular group. If you can't find one, you can start one. That's the other beauty of this. So if there's a particular niche that you're involved in and there's no group for that, but you know there's a few people out there at least that would be interested in collaborating on ideas and thoughts, then go ahead and start a group. You can search and find. This is the sort of the, let me grab the page and show you. We'll do it live. So you come up to search, and let's just say, and microbiology. So I'm just going to search microbiology. You're going to get a whole lot of results when you do that search. So LinkedIn understands that, so they have filters built in. Do you want people that are involved in microbiology? Do you want to posts? Jobs, companies that are involved in that, schools that teach it, specific courses. In this case, we're looking for groups to join in microbiology. So you'll get all these different choices for groups in microbiology. It tells you how many members are in it, gives you an overview of what the group is about, and an opportunity to join. Now, clicking on join won't automatically get you in because you might be vetted. And that's okay. You would want that in any group. I have a list of tips and hacks that I'd be more than happy to share with you. There's people in my industry that put out tips, including myself, just on how to take your profile from good to great. It covers a whole range of the profile advice, whether it's job searching, networking, what to post, things like that. When they put something out on LinkedIn, I tend to grab it and save it in a list for things like this. So if that's something I'd be more than happy to share that with you. Give you my email address there. And also open it up to any comments, questions, and concerns you have. Like I said, I know we've covered a lot. And if there are any questions, we can go ahead and field those now.
I have a question. I have seen LinkedIn like premium before, where so they've got like the free version and then the LinkedIn premium version. Is there any benefit to having that LinkedIn premium, or would you say for the most part, would you recommend it, or do you think it's just kind of not necessarily as much bang for your buck?
If you're in that category of thought leader, you've been out on there a while, you've come to a really good place in your career, it might be worthwhile to spend the money for premium, but premium was really designed to help people find jobs. It's a great tool for that. It gives you all kinds of analytics, gives you alerts. It'll tell you about a specific job posting, how many people applied, how do you rate based on what they're asking for versus what content of your profile. And that allows you to tweak your resume a little bit, fine tune it. So you go ahead and apply for that and send in your resume. So basic, to answer the question, yeah, if you're looking for work, looking for career advancement, premium is a good thing to have.
Thank you.
You bet. Jaquel asked in the chat, can we spend time at all on what types of items to post? Yes, we can. When it comes to posting, you want to be a little bit discriminatory about what you want to post. Keep it non-political, keep it definitely professional, limited to your areas of expertise and things like that. I see this far too often on LinkedIn, and it kind of frustrates me, is people will be posting these videos of like a construction worker reaching down into a sewer to rescue some baby ducks. That's great, but it doesn't belong on LinkedIn. So keep it to to what you know. Keep it to what you're good at, and within a range. I'd say one career over to the left or to the right that would parallel your interests and parallel your career. But the social stuff and the political stuff, I really discourage that.
Yeah, and what about, like, for instance, sometimes I'll share things on LinkedIn and I'll hashtag it and I'll do all these, opportunities to get more views, like tag others in it. Does that really matter? It seems like it generates more views usually on the post. I just feel like if you are tagging other people, it's likely to show up on their feed to their network and you get more exposure. Is that right? Or is that just an assumption?
No, that's correct. When you tag, when you hashtag people, and mention people in your post, it definitely helps in all those areas. It helps, it spreads it to your post. You have a chance to share it, to help extend the reach. And it draws them into the conversation as well, if they so choose to participate. So we had a question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yep.
I had a question come in. Do you recommend including service on a board of directors in the volunteer section or in the experience section? I'm saying neither. We want to put that in the accomplishment section. So especially if you've served on that board concurrently with your career, this will help keep the dates straight by putting that down in that accomplishments section as something that is one of those 8 categories is a professional organization. So you would list the board as a professional, as the organization, and then go ahead and list all the other information that they ask for in the dialog box. So board experience, go ahead and put that in the accomplishments section. It will work in the volunteer section as well. It'd be just as effective, especially if it's something outside of your career lane. If you've served on a board for, let's say, PETA or something, and you're an engineer, but if you serve because you love animals, you don't want to see them, you want to treat it ethically, but you've done this outside of your career lane, you could put that in the volunteer section as well. So it's sort of a both and. Question came in from Lauren. Is there a frequency people should be aiming for posting? I would try to post once a day. Just do like I like I say, not like I do, because I don't do that. I just don't have time. But to get out there and be out there a couple times a week, it's good. I've seen people in my little industry who are very diligent about making substantive posts. So get out there and post if it's of substance. But again, it goes to content. If you're just posting for the sake of being out there, don't make a post out of it, but go ahead and participate in other people's posts by commenting, liking, and things like that. But really get involved. If you engage other people's posts, it helps keep you up, your activity up too. So, and they keep stats on all that stuff. Other questions?
I kind of have a random question. So you know how I like to view a lot of people's profiles, I search for people, and there's a way where you can show yourself as like private or anonymous, or keep your name as someone that viewed someone's profile. Is there a more professional way of doing that, one way or the other? Like, does it matter if it shows that you viewed their profile? Do you know what I mean?
I do. It depends on what your aim is. If a lot of recruiters will shut off their who they are, because they don't want people to reach back to them. So if somebody's viewed your profile, for example, and they're in the recruiting industry, they may have just looked at your profile and said, no, she's not a good fit for this job. And then they've moved on. Reaching back and contacting them, because now they're a recruiter, they've viewed your profile, isn't going to be good etiquette. It really takes up their time, and especially for a recruiter, if they're LinkedIn heavy users, which most of them are, they simply don't have the bandwidth to engage people that aren't going to help them find candidates for jobs. So in that case, it makes sense. If you're worried about information security, personal security, things like that, you can remain anonymous for that reason. And you can turn that on and off too. I don't have that breakdown, the how to. ready. Some won't get into that, but suffice it to say, it's easy to turn that on and off in your settings.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if there are no other questions, I will thank you for that. And remember, resbuilder.com, res-builder.com is who I am. So I'll turn the screen share, and if people want to engage in a discussion, maybe you thought of a question, we can do it in this forum as well.
Thanks, Peter. I'm going to just kind of switch us gears while we have a few minutes remaining, and we can kind of have some dialogue and questions. It's a great presentation. This is really helpful. Didn't even know you could change your, as basic as changing your picture on your profile. So I just did that. Yeah, just helpful reminders. There's a lot that you can do right and wrong for sure. So I think this is really helpful. I think I learned a lot. Just wanted to talk more from those that are attending a conference or a large, if they're not attending the fall conference with EDAM, maybe you're attending another large networking opportunity locally in your community. There's always a lot of follow-up during and after an event on LinkedIn. You get new connections. If you're there for a few days at a conference, there's also opportunities to even post. And so I just want to give you my quick kind of like 2 cents on what I do before a conference or a large event, is I do go in and I just update my account. Usually try to have a couple relevant posts before a conference as well, about projects I'm connected with, networking groups, opportunities that I'm involved with, just for people to kind of see like what you're up to when they do connect with you, if it's someone new. And then those that you maybe haven't connected with in a while that connect with you at the conference, they might just look you up and say, God, I briefly chatted with Lauren, wondering, how long she's worked there now, or, people are just curious. And LinkedIn is kind of a lot of times the place we all go to learn about each other and the people we've met, and decide if we want to connect with those folks as well. So those are kind of my 2 cents in relating this to the LinkedIn conversation. And then as a follow-up, I do try to add everyone I meet on LinkedIn, especially if I find them valuable in my career. If there's some that you're on the fence with, I don't go that extra mile, but I always try to send those emails as well, especially if you had a very in-depth conversation with those folks at the conference. Always follow up. I don't really say you have to follow up during the conference. I always stay away from that because people are so overwhelmed during a conference. I know I hate being followed up with at a conference personally. And I've noticed that a lot of people need at least a few days. And if it goes into the end of the week, people usually don't start catching up to the conference until Monday or Tuesday. So just kind of a heads up, especially for this specific conference, the group that'll be there. But everyone has your own preferences. Just kind of wanted to share my tips and tricks. Jen or Katie or Lauren, do you have any other ideas or thoughts around that during conferences?
I would piggyback on what you said. I when I'm at a conference, I definitely try to make at least one new connection and then follow up when I get back. Whether it's just a, hey, thanks for that conversation, or thanks for pointing that out to me, or I want to hear more about your project. And then going into the conference, I always want to make sure I know what sessions I want to attend and what I'm trying to gain from those sessions. And then when you're in those sessions, you can see folks like yourself who are there probably for some of the same reasons. And then I try to connect with someone within each session too, if possible. Or maybe it's someone that I knew their name, but never actually met them. It's just a fun way of being like, hi, I'm Jen. We've connected in other ways, just haven't met personally. And that's just something that I like to do when I'm there. So I get get a lot out of the conferences.
And I'll share, this is, since we talked a lot about LinkedIn, but for the EDAM conference specifically, we've got the Whova app, which you can maybe sort of see on my phone. So in Whova, you can actually see everyone that's attending. And then there's a place where you can bookmark them if you want to remember to connect with them. You can say hi, you can send a message, or you can even request a meeting, and you can set like time, like amount of time of day, because it's a multiple day conference. So the Whova app is a good resource to connect with people, and then all of their information, their name, their employer, their title is all there. And then you can also use that information to find people on LinkedIn. And something that was not mentioned by Peter, but that I've heard in other sessions is, I think Jaquel sort of references too, to send messages to people to make it more personal when you're trying to connect with people. Say, hey, I met you at this conference, we talked about this, versus just like sending a connection. Especially when, if you're meeting a lot of people, maybe you don't remember them, or, you know, it was a quick conversation, but just something so that it can kind of like trigger that memory, and they'll want to connect with you.
I agree too. And especially it seems like the conferences that have happened past COVID, it seems like a lot of people are forgetting their business cards and whatnot. So I always try and keep pen and paper on hand, or just put it in your phone as well. Because I've definitely also forgotten my business cards plenty of times since COVID, because we haven't had to meet in person for a while. So yeah, definitely going to the EDAM conference. It'd be good to bring some pen and paper, or a spot on your phone where you plan to keep those contacts.
Yeah. Questions from the attendees of Peter or us on like conference hacks, our own personal LinkedIn ideas, questions you struggle with. It could be outside of the conference, just day to day, what you do on LinkedIn, anything like that.
I have a question regarding the LinkedIn. I guess I started one, I don't know, a million years ago, and have just recently started updating it. And it's still linked right now to a personal email, which is just a Gmail account. Does it make more sense for me to change the email on that to my work address? Does it look more professional to do that? Or what are your thoughts on that, Mr. Levin?
I think, gee, I had my Yahoo one on for a long time, but when I formalized the business, I changed, of course, to the business, and that's never going to change for me. So you could do, it's more of a, again, it's a both and. It depends on how you want people to be contacting you and who is going to be contacting you. I don't mind my Gmail box filling up with notes that don't matter as much. It depends on how many emails you're getting at work. Do you really want to add more to that burden too? So it really depends. Another path that I've often recommended for people who are receiving a lot of email, just as a matter of consequence, is to create a brand new email. And that'll be your LinkedIn contact, and be your career contact account that you check in every other day or something like that. So knowing that nothing really urgent is ever going to come there too. So any of those options would be good. It depends on what your needs and what, you know, how much email you like to receive. So.
I would piggyback, Justine. I can't tell you how many times when I've like switched careers and I didn't transfer all my contacts with, so I went on LinkedIn to find their email. And then that's when I realized so many people do not have their professional email on their LinkedIn, because they go to look for it on their LinkedIn and it's their Gmail or their Yahoo. So it's super common for, I think, people on LinkedIn to have a personal email on there. I don't think you get very judged or criticized on that as much. It's like, you know, Peter said, it's a preference. I had it once on my career email, and it was a lot of just extra emails to kind of filter through, and I moved it back to my personal. But if you have like a really inappropriate email,
no, it's just my name.
yeah, sometimes I laugh at, like, it's school season, right? Kids just went back to school, and I can tell you how many teacher friends I have that will tell me the funny emails that parents have on their contact form. So if it's anything that's like, you know, baller222 at yahoo.com, maybe you want to use your or not use your personal. Otherwise, I think it's pretty rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Questions from the group, or even you can share your own tips or thoughts that maybe you've had at one time and you kind of figured out a good practice for your profile or conferences, anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm curious to know.
Experience.
I'm curious to know, does anyone have an opinion on LinkedIn Learning as terms of a professional development tool or anything like that?
Great question. I would have the same question as you, Ruth.
I might be able to speak into that a little bit. If you remember back in the day when lynda.com was a thing for online learning and training, specific industry training, LinkedIn bought lynda.com. So they have a pretty robust library of training to do that. And some of their certifications are pretty good and recognized. So if it's something that fits, go ahead and do it. It can't hurt. You know, nowadays it's not enough to have a degree, college degree on your profile, but certifications are really starting to become the thing that matter, so that they know in an instant that you've had very specific type of training and expertise.
I've got a question about content that you post. So I typically post stuff that is related to my job, my work, not like thought leadership stuff necessarily, and then EDAM things. So do you have recommendations, I guess? Is that the right approach? Should I be actually trying to do more kind of general thought, economic development things, or what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, if that's your desire, is to sort of branch out and go above and beyond just sharing and just giving updates, then definitely think about what it is that EDAM is doing that other people or other groups aren't, and get that out there, and talk about your specific interactions with that. The other way to do it is to comment on people's posts too. If you're a frequent commenter, then just by virtue of engaging your mind in that, you're going to start to think differently about different topics. You're going to kind of branch out, and there's no crime in offering an informed opinion about something that helps people advance their goal. I hope that makes sense, because that's not a really textbook, but yeah, I just think that through your own experience and the things that you've helped your office or your organization succeed, will translate to something that other people haven't thought of or tried yet. So that's thought leadership.
I would help kind of from like a what to post. Switching jobs here in the last year, my previous role when I oversaw economic development for the county, I was much of a promoter of the county, definitely from a land development and redevelopment standpoint, vacant buildings. And my network has a lot of business and broker contacts. So LinkedIn was a great platform to use my economic development page, and then I would reshare it usually on my personal page to get that out there. I almost have better luck sometimes sharing those opportunities through LinkedIn than I did my email or constant contact database. But it was a huge marketing tool for me. Now switching gears into more of a real estate development world, I have a different lens on what I'm trying to get out of LinkedIn. Not as active, just naturally, because of my role is not as much promotional. And I have so many things that take so long to finish that are projects. And so those aren't really things you can just, hey, cool, I got approved by the city council for my project last night. I'm not sharing those updates on LinkedIn. So there's just different opportunities. So I focus more of my lens now on sharing professional activities and updates and bigger milestones. And so my network and the people that I think are liking my posts has also shifted. And I've just had to get comfortable with that. It's just the reality of where my career is at. And so I think for all of you that are on the same boat, you might have shifted careers, or you might even just shift preferences. Sometimes we all get burnt out of using social media too much or using it not enough. And I think it's okay to be at any stage and utilize it, and just, know that there's not a rocket science. I think the one good thing to always remember, no matter who your audience is, and when you switch jobs, and one thing I've learned is when you tag people in a post, involve people in it, acknowledge people, especially if it's a project you want to make that known, or if it's an event, acknowledge your teammates on it. And then tags. I think tags, hashtags really help get views. And at the end of the day, if you're sharing something on LinkedIn, you do want to get a lot of views for whatever purpose, if it's for job searching or if it's to market something in your community. The more views, the better. So those are kind of the two always rule of thumbs that I've learned work. And then obviously a picture. or a link that generates a picture. When you insert a link, it'll generate like the website picture. Always create way more views than just like a general text post.
Good.
Awesome. Well, we're running out of time. I really appreciate just all of you kind of jumping in with this new Building Your Toolbox series. It's something new for us too, but I personally love it. It's a way for all of us to connect, for me to learn from all of you, vice versa. We'll have another one every quarter, same time over the lunch hour, same format. You know, it'll be free. Hopefully you got your little $10 e-gift card. Go grab lunch later today, grab dinner, whatever you want to do with that. If you don't have a Chipotle close by, use it next time you travel. It doesn't expire anytime soon. And then attend the conference if you can. It'll be great. A lot of us committee members will be there and connect with us. We'll be at the introduction kind of phase when you're coming into the conference during registration. There'll be a beanbag tournament. Our committee will be there kind of networking, getting you connected. So stop by and see us. And we'll be getting together for coffee too on Thursday morning. So if you want to connect with any of us and just get more involved and with this committee, let us know. If you just want to be a regular emerging professional in the group and attend these events, love to connect with you. And then we are hosting an in-person emerging professional or new to the fields type of event in Minneapolis. So I know for those of you that are further out, it's central, so it's not always easy to attend. That's October 13th from 4 to 6. So it is a little bit later if you do have a commute, so you don't have to leave work at noon. You can leave a little bit later. We'll be posting that soon. So keep an eye out for that. There'll be an opportunity to be outside with fire pits or inside. So if you're COVID conscious, you can make whatever call you need to, but still be able to network. So threw a lot at you guys. Peter, you're awesome. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And if I haven't already reached out to you, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we'll connect.
Well, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.